This is a very thought-provoking combination of readings we have today. I'll start with something that should be familiar because we've reflected on it before, and that is the connection between the Ark of the Covenant as it appears in the life of David, which we heard from 2 Samuel today, and the figure and the person of Mary, because this is going to come into play in the situation we have in the gospel. So we see with David, this Ark of the Covenant, which, as a friendly reminder, was something instructed to Moses to create where God was going to seat his dwelling place. So the Ark of the Covenant is the dwelling place of God. Within its chest is contained the manna, the 10 Commandments, and the rod of the first high priest, Aaron. This is at a time post-Egypt when they're on the move in the desert, so the Ark is contained within a meeting tent. But now that they're no longer just this nomadic people, but they become a kingdom, and with David, they're going to Jerusalem where they're going to be in a stable place. In the future, that meeting tent will become a temple, and at the very center of the temple, at its heart, is the Ark of the Covenant. But the Ark isn't there yet, and the temple doesn't exist yet, so we're seeing this triumphal procession of the Ark. So what do we note about the Ark? We note that in their travels with the Ark, the priests that are carrying it, you're not supposed to touch it. So there's these poles that go through these loops, and the priests carry it, and every 6 paces they're offering sacrifice to God, which speaks to the holiness of God and certainly by extension the holiness of the Ark. But at some point they almost tip and it almost falls into the mud, and Uzzah sticks his hand out to steady the Ark, and just because he touches it, he's struck dead. And David, seeing this, is filled with so much fear of the Ark that he actually before he brings it to Jerusalem, he brings it to Obed's house, where the Ark stays for 3 months and blesses Obed. After that is today's scene, where now they're arriving in Jerusalem with the Ark. He wants the Ark there. And he's celebrating, he's crying out, there's songs of rejoicing, great festivity. He's dancing and leaping in front of the Ark, and he's offering all of these priestly sacrifices. The Gospel and the New Testament will go through great lengths to show that Mary is in fact the Ark. So just as the Ark was with Obed for 3 months, Mary goes to visit Elizabeth and Zechariah, where she remains for 3 months during Elizabeth's pregnancy. Just as there's great festivity and celebration, so Elizabeth, it says, gives out great cry. And just as David has the Holy Spirit rushed upon him, and in that Spirit he's celebrating, it says of Elizabeth, the Holy Spirit comes upon her and she cries out. David will say, "Who am I that the Ark of my Lord should come to me?" Elizabeth will say, "Who am I that the mother of my Lord shall come to me?" Right? It goes on and on and on. In fact, even the book of Revelation will say, "I saw the Ark coming down in the sky, a woman clothed with the sun, and on her head a crown of 12 stars." All this to say, it says a lot about who Mary is and who her son is, and certainly her holiness. So we can see the holiness of the Ark pointing toward the Immaculate Conception of Our Lady. Now, why all of this matters is because if we accept that, what happens in the gospel should be so shocking to us, it's near scandalous. Jesus has this circle, I'll say of disciples, but certainly at least listeners, seated around him as he's proclaiming the gospel. Outside of the house, his relatives are coming to him, including Mary. She who is the Immaculate Conception, the All-Holy, the Ark of the Covenant. And some of the members of the crowd say, they're outside and they're calling for you, your mother, your brothers, your sisters. The Greek just says your kinsmen, so we translate it that way. But your mother and your kinsmen are outside, they're calling for you. Now, in a Jewish mind, especially with the commandments, you honor your mother and your father. You get up and you go. But all the more when your mother is the Ark of the Covenant. Yet what does Jesus do? He says, well, who is my mother? Who are my kinsmen? It's not the people outside, it's the people here. What? And he says, my mother and my brother are my sisters, and my sisters are those who do the will of the Father. Now this is a bold statement, but it matters. Mary's immaculate conception, her identity and vocation as the Ark of the Covenant, means nothing if she is not united in heart with the Father. If she carves out her own will, if she does her own thing, if she says yes when it's convenient and no when it's not, then none of that matters at all, in fact. It reminds me of when Jesus, speaking to the crowds about John the Baptist, who was so famous that they thought he was the Messiah, and Jesus says to the crowds, the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than John the Baptist. What that means for us is that it's not enough, for example, if we bring this home, it's not enough to say, well, I've been baptized into the person of Jesus Christ, or I'm a Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 12 years. If we are not living out our identity of sonship, seizing our baptism and allowing it to so change our life that the orientation of our entire being is towards the Father, then none of it matters. None of it matters. Mary is who she is because she says yes to the Father and lives out what he intended and made her to be. But she has to accept that and say yes to that, as do we. And that is the struggle of the Christian life. I'm struggling all the time. I was talking about that with Jesus in my holy hour this morning. Lord, help me. I just want to do your will. And sometimes that's really, really difficult. But that is the mission. And not only is that the mission, that is our dignity. And in that dignity, we will discover and celebrate the glory of God.